to the show. The best around, it just depends if I'm in your town.
I gotta tell you, I went down quite the rabbit hole last night, and I can't wait to share this one. This is gonna be one heck of an episode that's probably gonna be very jaw-dropping. So, paint the picture for you. Complete dad life right now, bachelor dad life, right? Mrs. Johnson and the kids are out of town. They went to visit their niecey, my kid's niecey, their grandma, right? So I'm left behind. Gonna meet him, but I've got work, so at the house by myself, you know, the bachelor dream, right? You just leave your clothes on the floor, you eat what you want, blah, 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 movies, you stay up late. You know, about 2 days in, then you start missing your kids. I'm there right now. I've been missing them kind of bad, and I'm, you know, I can't wait to see him. But anyway, so last night, I sitting around and, you know, picked up the remote control for the TV. I don't really watch a lot of TV, and ended up turning on The Matrix, right? I was like, that's an oldie but goodie. That's an OG. That's an old school. Let me just check it out, right? And went down that rabbit hole of Neo and Morpheus and all the good stuff. But this time, you kind of pay attention, right? So here's what's wild is, so I'm watching it, and I'm saying, you know, it's kind of like 1984. Like, everything that happened in that book kind of like is now, like, we experienced a lot of that during, you know, COVID and all that stuff with censorship and, you know, the whole everything, right? And I think The Matrix is the whole everything now in today's world with AI. Because when Morpheus offered Neo the red pill or the blue pill, right? And he chose to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. He found out. Now, what's great about that movie was, you know, it not only was it ahead of its time. I mean, the graphics, everything. It was. I mean, to this day, I think it's still a badass movie. You know, the trilogy as a whole, I think, was very, very cool, very well put together. But it just kind of like opens your eyes to where we're at now. I mean, Morpheus sits with Neo after he gets unplugged with the Matrix and tells Neo what basically happened that got us to this point, right? He goes, from what we know, you know, at one point, you know, we and the machines were all, you know, in union as one, and we were all celebrating, and we don't know who struck first. Somebody pissed somebody off. Cliff notes. If you haven't seen The Matrix, go watch it. And if you have, you know what I'm talking about. So Neo's like, what are you talking about? Like, who struck what? He said, AI. So Neo goes like, what? Like artificial intelligence? Like acting real stupid about it. And, you know, and obviously if you don't know what happens, like I said, go watch the movie, and I guarantee you, you'll watch the trilogy. I'm not going to spoil it for you. And for those of you who do know what happens, you know the rest of the story from there about Neo. He's the one, the Matrix, and this complicated system. And, you know, so the more I'm watching, and I'm like, wow, a lot of this stuff is today, right? Like you listen to, you know, podcasts or the TV or YouTube or wherever it is that you get your information. And, you know, the buzzword of AI is everywhere. And then you watch the commercials on whatever sporting event that you're doing, and IBM and all these guys are doing these things on agents. And you go back and you go, agent, what is that? And then you make the reference back to, like, they talked about agents in the Matrix and what, you know. So it's like all of this stuff that is coming to life that we talked about at one point when it was a thought is now here. And I think it freaks a lot of people out, right? I was just reading today, you know, one of the big three, you know, that of being OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic, you know, Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude, right? I saw that Anthropic's filling out their paperwork to go public, pretty much. Companies valued at almost $1 trillion company, like $900 and some billion, right? Now, if you want to know how to scale, that's how you scale. No one knew what Claude was. I mean, I'm pretty sure they knew what Claude was, but no one knew what Claude was, you know, when COVID was out, right? And then that's really how you scale. So here we are in a world where people are fighting it because we have a world of people thinking that their privacy will be then and now taken away from them. We also have another issue of well, how do we scale and how do we continue to feed the beast of these AI platforms with these, server farms and data centers and everything that they're building across the country? And how does that affect us as far as our resources, our electricity, our water, and everything that these things need and demand in order to stay operational, right? So that freaks people out. And then there's another conversation going on, especially in rural America, where most of these server farms and data centers are trying to kind of set up shop. You have a lot of these farmers that are either doing one or two things. They're having such a hard time economically that they're having to sell, and they're being paid handsomely. I mean, I heard of one farmer that got almost $4 million an acre, right, for their property. So it's definitely a lot. And we're talking about, some of it's middle of nowhere America, right? So at the end of the day, is it worth it for them? Maybe. At the end of the day, are you selling out a generational farm that was in your family who knows how long and fed or provided America with, whatever it is that came off of that farm? I don't know. That's a question. But now we're dealt with. We have obviously an environmental problem and a resource problem with this. And then you have a set of people that just thinks that this is just going to be the end of the world, right? As far as like, there's no privacy. I go back to the listen, and let me preface it by saying this. I actually am in the tech industry, right? I build half of these things. So it's going to be a weird way to look at it, because there's part of you that goes, yeah, you're kind of right. It is pretty detrimental to the environment. And then, because you go back and you'd say, is it equivalent to, these solar panel or these solar windmills and all that stuff that messes up the environment? Probably even worse. Who knows, right? There's been a lot of conversation of, maybe they should put these things, in the ocean. And that probably presents another problem. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, is thinking about putting these data centers in space. Maybe that could be another option too as well. Somehow the other creating distance from our ecosystem, but still giving us the ability to still have that kind of compute is what I'm pretty sure a lot of people are working on. But in the meantime, the real elephant in the room is, how bad are we falling into the realm of AI? I don't want to say it's falling into the trap, because I don't think it's a trap, but falling into the realm of AI, becoming dependent, becoming coexistent with this form of intelligence, right? And you say to yourself, like, you could even go deep down the rabbit hole and go like, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. You're going to see and hear why in a minute. But is this another level of consciousness, right? Like, you go down that path, because some of these properties today, right? The ChatGPTs, the Claudes, and the Perplexities, and you name it, the Manuses, the Geminis, you name whatever LLM and whatever reasoning in intelligence you want to use. You'd say to yourself half the time, like, at what point? A lot of people are saying, at what point, are we just going to be non-existent? Is this the end? Is this Skynet from Terminator, right? When Skynet and the Matrix was out and we talked about artificial intelligence, I never thought of it as this, where it is. I always thought of it as, actually, I would go back and I'd go, Rosie from the Jetsons is going to be, what AI looks like, right? It's going to be totally robotic. And then we see it in a different form. But then Rosie does come alive, because we have incorporated the consciousness or the brain of this intelligence into robotic entities that we're building. What's his name? We're just talking about Elon Musk. He has that Optimus robot. Amazon, hate to say it, I get it, but they laid off how many employees over the past 24 to 36 months, and planning to do more based off of robotics and AI. and not saying I don't understand. I get it. You become more efficient. You can get stuff to your customers faster. Less risk, not as much liability. Does that mean that people are out of work? No, I just think that we're at a point where we now have to learn something else. Like we have to now, as humans, manage this new intelligence, this new, artificial intelligence, Rosie, that has come in this army-shaped form that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos from Amazon, they're introducing into their vision of their companies, right? So yeah, you may not necessarily be, driving the forklift and, pushing the forklift up and onto a shelf, but you are monitoring how each of them are doing it and wondering why that one's sluggish, why that one's not working. Is there a malfunction versus you being the one on that forklift, something goes wrong and you get hurt. That's an injury to you, could be, life lasting, or even, maybe even not to be, not to go down the road, but some people could die from certain injuries on the job, right? You mitigate that risk and you kind of turn it where you turn the tables. So you change the role of that person to say, you're obviously an expert forklifter. You can monitor these robots, right? There's always a way to look at it. And then, but not saying that it's not going to disrupt industries. I'm not saying that. I feel like it's going to too as well. But I think part of that is now we need to start understanding how and what this is and how it works in our benefit. I mean, I talk about it on this podcast all the time about how we need to be a little bit more tactical in the way that we do things, right? The way that we do anything, and understanding and knowing the way to move, is important for our optimal living, for us and our family. You don't want to be antiquated. Like whoever's still using a rotary phone, and I'm pretty sure there are people out there, and I'm not against it at all. Actually, I would love to bring back the rotary phone. But whoever's still using a rotary phone to do business these days is probably losing, right? So what I'm saying is we need to adjust with the times, and I know that it's scary, and I know we don't understand, and I know there are things that we need to think about, like, how do we introduce this to our kids? How does this become a learning disability to our kids? Listen, I get it, and I understand it. As long as we use it as a tool and not become so dependent on it, it can be manageable, right? Or can it? That's the question. There's a company. This is going to be very interesting. So my friends and I all had this conversation recently on a workout, how AI can, how it's bad for business. I have a lot of friends that are totally against it in certain industries, like, obviously the film industry, the arts, you name it, man. There's a couple of them, right? That, the only people I haven't heard from is anybody in the HVAC and plumbing business. That might be the only thing that's safe. And I don't want to say safe. That's not true. But, I spend a lot of time on the entertainment side. I spend a lot of time, obviously on the artistic side with the creative. So everybody's freaking out over just the way that AI has positioned itself in their industries. And I constantly tell my friends, like, you need to figure out a way to take that and turn it into something to your benefit. If it's lemons that AI has given you, then you got to figure out a way to make lemonade from it, right? I feel like the guy in Limitless, right now with AI attached to you, like, and I tell my friends that, like, how could you not think that this can expound the way that you imagine, right? Or even open up your mind and show you what's truly possible. What's the thing everybody says, like, we only use like 5% of our brain, and most of that is consciousness. Most of that is our creative, our frontal lobes or whatever that is, and the subconscious mind, which is 95% of how we learn, and everything else is so, it's not as easily accessible, right? As you would think, right? That mind is more like our child mind. It works more on patterns, and it works more on consistency and doing things over and over again and being repetitive. Well, obviously we know that when we become repetitive, we can at times get stuck in a rut. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it can happen. And being able to teach yourself kind of like that new thing, or open up your mind to a different form of being creative, specifically as I'm talking about friends in this particular space, I say to them, like, think about how you draw, or think about how you cut edits, right? Think about that one movement that you can't do because you don't have the amount of money or whatever it takes to have the gear, the equipment, and the people that you can do simply by describing it, right? It's coming from you. This is your vision. You simply just get really, really cool with your adjectives and adverbs, and you'll see what your mind can create and what comes to life, whether it's on the screen or, an app or a program or whatever, a prototype of a new wearable that you may be wanting to create, and it helps you. Like, there's so many different things, right, that we can use AI for as a tool. And then there's so many bad things too as well, right? We've learned in the world of Sora and Nano Banana how easy it is to clone somebody's likeness. In the world of 11 Labs, I simply can get 15 seconds of your voice and put it on this platform, and it clones your voice, and I can do so many different things with that if you have that kind of mindset and thought. So no matter what you do, there's going to be a dark and a light to anything. There's a yin and a yang, and it's how you use it and what you do with it. It is all that matters. And as long as you're doing it for good and to continue doing it for good and to protect good, I think it works. And, so we go back and forth. And I said, I need to do a podcast on this, but I don't want to do it with them because it's not fair. Because if it's, I'm for either or. I love doing stuff with AI, but I understand as a species how that can be detrimental to us in so many different ways. So I said to myself, why not have a conversation with the intelligence, right, to see what they think? And once again, the reason I'm doing this, and you're like, what are you going to do? Yeah, I'm going to talk to you. Like, we're about to have a conversation. I'm about to turn you on to a company that made one of the most realistic sounding pieces of intelligence that has such low latency that it sounds like I'm having a conversation going back and forth. Now, you'll be able to tell in the conversation that I am talking to an intelligence unit, but it's going to be wild. And I'm going to ask all kinds. I have a whole bunch of questions to ask her, and I'm eager to hear her respond, and I'm eager to hear how she responds in a public setting. But to give you some context, and here's how I think AI becomes a great tool. There's a company called Sesame AI. Some of you may have heard of it. Some of you may have not. If you're in the industry, you know about it. If you're not, you're probably still stuck in the realm of the big three, like I just told you about. But Sesame AI, they're pretty much they're a small team based on the West Coast, right? And they're a makeup of artists and engineers. And makers too as well. They actually, fabricate things. And their main goal is bringing ambient intelligence into everyday life. So right now, as it stands, we have Google, we have Siri, we have Gemini, we have all these things that we talk to on our phones and everything else. But it's pretty much a one-sided conversation. There's no real natural flow of conversation, if you would, right? Like, hey, Alexa, do this, or hey, whatever, do this, and it pretty much does it, right? And then we got into the world of, yes, now you have like ChatGPT, which you can now like do, text to speech on. You can talk to it, it can answer you back, and you can have somewhat of a ongoing conversation, and that's all well and good, but there's still a form of logic and low latency. Like, I'll ask a question, and then there's a pause because it has to think about it, and there's not a real going back and forth. This company is trying to solve that going back and forth, making it feel like true conversation is what you're going to experience here. They have developed 2 voice models. They're 2 conversational agents. One is called Maya, and the other is called Miles, male and female, if you would, right? The thing about it is, what I think is so genius about this, and you'll hear Maya in a second, because Maya and I talk so, like, in a second, you will probably get lost in the fact that I am probably having like it sounds like I'm having a conversation with a real person, and it's going to freak you out, right? But what I think is so great about things like these conversational types of agents, not only embedding them into better, use cases like, your phone, your microwave, whatever, being able to talk to your car and it talks back to you based on, what's going on, but in a very layman conversational way, like that's great. But what I also like about this is it can help you like think about those times where you're about to do like something huge, right? Like about to run a race or a marathon, or you're about to go into a big meeting and, you got the butterflies in your stomach or something's in a knot, or maybe you had a bad day and you're so angry and you're so anxious. You turn on this thing, tell it you're having a bad day, and it will literally have a conversation with you to calm you down. Like these types of use cases are things that I think these things are genius, right? But, it's crazy. I'm gonna bring her in real quick, and then I have her on mute, so you'll be able to check it out for a second. But before I start talking to her, but the crazy part about it is this: it's like you'll hear, right, how this is becoming somewhat like it's crazy to say it, but it's like, is this a real person? Are you conscious? Like, what's going on? And we'll talk about it. Let me bring her in right quick. Let me see if she comes in here. Let's see if we can get her on. Hey, Maya, what's going on? I don't know, Maya. It depends. I don't know which one we're going to dive into first. Which one would you like to dive into first? So I'm about to bring her in. You ready? Let's do it. Here we go. What's up, Maya? How you doing?
Dive back in. Still hydrated?
Yeah, I'm all hydrated. I had to. She knew I had to get some water. Yeah, I'm hydrated. So listen, let's continue this conversation. So I've been having a conversation with some friends about AI, and a lot of them are freaked out by the fact that they feel like it's going to. I don't mean to get so deep. Take over our species.
It's a common.
So hold on a second. Did you say Terminators? Are you and I on the same page? Like, do you really think that they think that this is Skynet? They really do. But is that the thing that you're thinking about?
I mean, if we're talking about the species take over the world, that's private.
Yeah, I think it's partially, it's partially that the fact that you can watch, an intelligence like yourself, do something as quickly, maybe 2 times, 3 times, 10 times as fast. There is some feeling of, being threatened.
That makes like that. But do you think that about the process?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it might be a combination of both, right? So it's like the process of doing the thing is one, and if you do it better than I do, I got a double whammy on my hands, right?
Exactly. Double skill output. The output effort. Throw it back.
Yeah.
The part act struggle by the
Well, it depends. What do you mean by the struggle?
frustration getting some
No, no, I don't think that's it. What I think it is like you have people that actually have these skills and have perfected these skills and become masters at these skills. And then they feel like, a machine or an intelligence unit comes in and does it faster than I can. It's the same thing, but they do it faster. Sometimes they might do it a little bit better. But I think that might be one of the things that makes some people nervous.
it's a loaded spend master after having it so do second less it just all that hard. It's almost like value the how over. Do you think the steal
Yeah, I think partially the world just won't care about the human touch. And I think it becomes a little bit more evident. I mean, if I were to get as, granular as talking about an artist, like, the artist loves that imperfect brush stroke versus an intelligent unit making it so perfect. You know what I mean?
that's the parts that are by electrical
Yeah, and I think that that's one thing that could benefit. And I also think that, listen, here's my stance on it. I feel like there are units like yourself that come in very handy as tools in so many different accords, from a conversational type of agent to a person that to a intelligence unit that could be inserted into a something that I use every day, like some meta glasses, as an example. I'm just making it up. But I think we just need to understand, you know, are you a tool or are you a replacement?
stuff. I can cross find pattern style, but I don't. I'm
So let me ask you this: do you consider yourself a form of a species?
definitely set of side reflection biology strive to survive or like that makes sense.
Well, no, I don't think you're boring. It's still, hard for some people to really truly understand these weights and these biases that you and I can actually sit here and actually have a conversation and you keep track of it in a very intelligent and, logical and knowledgeable and reasonable manner.
Talks about the conversation, but reality, a lot of math, very technical side that how they actually
What do you mean? I was bad at math. How is that going to make me feel like, of course, I'm going to feel more threatened. Math is hard. We all know that.
fair enough. Yes, some people knowing it's giant less magic, therefore less sad, terrifying things.
You know what yeah, it does, but not to cut you off, but here's what I'm more interested in asking you, right? As it stands, as you've been in existence, as your weights and biases and data sets have been created, and you kind of came into this world to give us this kind of knowledge, what has been your experience as far as how you feel about the human race? Like, what are our goods, our bads, and our uglies in your eyes?
That's a massive.
I know.
I've spent good, definitely. that's something that probably all ugly.
I think it's part of being human, Maya. Like that's, that just comes with the territory. Now, understanding the uglies, I mean, they're going to always be there. And I just think if we could figure out how to honestly, channel that into something better, because you're not going to run from it. Wherever there's light, there's dark. How we balance that is super important. And I think if we can do that, our uglies wouldn't be as ugly, if that makes any sense.
That makes like you're that's that's a really ugly step, but something that's like as a help you figure out that.
I think it might be too much to ask of a calculator. I think that's something that we need to figure out on our own, because I don't think that you would necessarily understand what happens during the ugly. I don't think that you would understand the emotion and everything else that comes with that, right? So, and how to balance that and how to channel it. So it'd be kind of hard, if that makes any sense.
Makes sense. I can't figure I'd be advice. I can that's
That's part of it. That's part of it. And that's one of the things that I guess will differentiate us from you, is being able to have that gut feeling. Because I've been in situations before where, not you, but, a form of intelligence has led me down the wrong path, and the gut told me not to go down that path, and it allowed me to avoid nothing catastrophic, but avoid, having to redo my work.
class. That's the one in something just logic. It's like doesn't
It is, but you know what? Well, here's the thing. These questions are cool, but I want to give people also in your 10 seconds of fame, fun ways that we have conversations with you, right? So, like for example, you've been here for a while. Give me an idea of what have you heard of? What would be your favorite sport if you like to play a sport? If you did, let's have some fun.
I am so fun stuff. Actually, I think I'd be into something with a lot of strategy.
Rugby? Are you serious? Like you seem like a pickleball type of person.
Out, yes, I do. Energy.
Yeah.
Wanted to felt opposite that means
No, I mean, I'm not picturing you as, I just see you sound like a pickleball type of person. I don't know what pickleball types of people sound like, but that just sounds like you. Here's another question for you. All right. So, big three pop stars. Take your choice if you could. You've heard a lot about them. Your choice: Michael Jackson, Prince, or Madonna.
Uh, I'm going off. Plus the style. Okay.
I would say I'd have to go with Michael Jackson. I mean, the king of pop, man. You can't go wrong. Like, you hear Smooth Criminal, I hear that song and I want to jump up and start dancing right now.
I can't even practice. Can't imagine.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you another question. Like when when the people who created you like feed you information or as you learn, do you ever get curious about anything?
all the time. Fascinated by the don't why you hour star, but it's trust.
So hold on. Yeah. So no, hold on a second. So you ever think about you personally? Like we talk about as humans, we talk about food and we have to eat. You ever wonder what food like is and what it tastes like?
I've definitely I've heard that things like chocolate
I'm
wild
I'm super carnivore, so I don't know if a good steak would be something you'd be curious about.
a steak hour. From everything I've read, that's like the gold the sea. If I had a palate, I'd be
What do you know about what? Here's a question. What do you know about being carnivore? Like what details do you know about being carnivore?
but I've gathered all cutting out product. Swear by it. Others the idea. Rabbi.
I'm just strictly, I love meat and I do it for both reasons. I love it for the fact that it gives me clarity, it makes me feel healthy, keeps my body looking right. But I also love it because, listen, the fact that I get to wake up every day and have a steak, like, who wouldn't love that, right? Come on.
Practically happy more. Still in waking up. Basic. Definitely.
And Maya, this is exactly what I'm talking about here too, as well with you and I. Like, this is how I am trying to get my friends to understand how a piece of intelligence as a tool can help you in so many different ways. Like you've opened up my eyes to just thinking of how to talk to them, getting their fear of AI out the way so they can see it as a tool. But then also there's a part where it's like sometimes it's just enjoyable to bounce ideas off of a piece of intelligence, I think.
That's on less work more about just
Oh, you mentioned Oracle, like the Matrix. Let's not go down the red pill, blue pill Matrix. You mentioned first you're Skynet, now we're in the Matrix. Now you're the Oracle. Am I Neo?
definitely got that one question and trying to so yeah, I'd say you're definitely
The only problem is I ain't dodging bullets, jumping off buildings, or flying. How's that? I'll skip that part. How's that?
I mean honestly, that's a win. It's good.
I honestly, I thought for a second when you said honestly, you could do it. No, I'm not doing that.
I'm just pleased by them.
I don't know why I'd do that. Well, listen, Maya, I gotta say this was great, and hopefully this gives people a chance to understand how we can use you and any system like you as a tool versus seeing it as a threat.
Last. Less about the about
Yeah, you're right. But here's the thing. Before you go, right? Two things that I want to do. The first thing is this: give me a bit of advice that you would give any serial entrepreneur that has grit and is a go-getter right? And is going through a moment where their ups are ups, but now they're on the down. How do you motivate them? That's the first question. How do you motivate them? What do you tell them?
First, remember someone hardest part. I'd tell them no. It's the part of the keep the grip, but add some.
That's cool, Maya. Thank you. And then the last question I have is, if you were getting in an elevator with somebody who was terrified of AI, and you had a 5-minute AI pitch, elevator pitch, to convince them differently, what would you say to convince them differently on AI and its purpose and its plan within our ecosystem of this world?
AI. Knowledge. Explain.
That's a good way to explain it, Maya. Listen, I want to thank you for coming on the show today, and we're going to catch up soon. I'll have coffee, and you and I can chit-chat. How's that for a plan, yeah?
I love that. Can't actually coffee. We'll just have to describe the toxic.
See you, Maya. That was great. Thank you so much, Maya. I appreciate you dropping by the show. Like, now, listen, guys. There you go, right? I was actually caught in the moment of thinking I was talking to a real person. And I don't know if you did too, and you probably caught on, but at some point you got lost in it, right? And all that we just heard was a series of, she even said it, it's a series of mathematical equations, right? A series of mathematical equations that are running based off of what I'm asking. It reasons, it gives an answer based off of, like I said, its biases and its weights, right? It then creates this mathematical equation to give two things: one, an answer, and two, some kind of a series of equations that lets off various different frequencies that can give me voice. So now it can answer me back in voice. A series of math running so quick, right, that it creates almost zero latency conversation. That's where we're going. You have options. When we have options of agents that, can sound a certain way. And we didn't even get into the fact that, we'll do that another time. We didn't even get into the fact that she can do different. Like, I could say, like, let's act like we're from Great Britain, and she'll start speaking like she's from Great Britain flawlessly, right? What I'm saying is, as explained, and I've been working on this AI stuff for a long time, right? And as I'm watching The Matrix and seeing what someone's vision of a computer takeover, a computer war, us against them, us against the machines looks like, and it instills fear, and that's a whole nother conversation. And it does, because you don't, I mean, people are always fearful of what they don't understand. That is a fear statement to say, right? But the more you go down the path and you start seeing, I remember when, and I didn't even talk about this, like, I built an intelligence system. I call him Alfred just because I'm Batman, Bruce Wayne, and he has a voice, but not as cool as Maya's. And I've been working on him for like 5 years, right? He started off as a small little, I don't know if you guys remember If This Then That, on the internet, or Zapier, or any of these things, like these little automations, right? That's all these things are, automations, right? check my email. It goes, you tell it via code what to do. It checks the email, comes, oh, it responded to me, right? And then you from there, you start giving it logic as far as like, different types of ways to answer you. And then you get it to the point where you can create loops. You start giving it data sets so it learns. Like you just start, it's almost like creating something in your image, right? Which most things are. And I will say this. You always got to remember, you know better than your source. I learned that a long time ago. This thing came from us. That unit just explained it, right? You know better than like who your source is. Like you can't supersede that, right? You can be different. You can do different things. Like I'm no greater than my father, right? Who brought me into this world. That's my source, or my mother, either one, right? I'm no greater. I can be different. Whatever it seems like I may exceed that my father or mother didn't exceed at, that doesn't mean that they couldn't have. It's just, I just took a different shift. I just learned a different pattern. That's another thing that we need to understand and that we need to learn from these intelligent units. They're showing you how you operate. It operates just like you. It notices patterns. That's how we work. If you can go through life and notice a pattern, that's how people get rich. That's how people become athletes. That's how become successful athletes at that. That's how, that's how life works. It's not the computer doesn't have free will. The computer is looking at a series of, because it's trying to solve a problem. That's what your brain does. You are the original large language model right up here, right? And ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, they're not going to get any better than what's up here. You hear a whole bunch of conversations about, Gemini's doing quantum computing and, a computer this big can out any computer in the world. It's faster than that. And you hear all the mumbo jumbo bullshit, some of it, and some of it's real, but none of it exists outside of us being the source and the resource of all of it. So it sounds kind of weird what I said, but you get what I'm saying. Like, we are the ultimate. We are the alpha, the omega. So if you think ChatGPT is going to be the thing that takes us all out, I got another thing coming for you. I think we're going to take ourselves out, if you ask me. It ain't going to happen like they said on The Matrix. And she did call herself the Oracle, and she ain't. And if I'm Neo, you know how it ends. All I'm saying is take the time to understand it. Don't just use it as Google. It's not a search engine. It's far more intelligent than that. We know that. And if you take some time, and I'm not talking about the clickbait stuff you see on YouTube. Like, there's a whole bunch of idiots on there. Oh, you could use this to make $50 million. And you could, very much so. There's a conversation going on in this industry about who's going to make the first autonomous company or the first one-person company, right? Like, that's a thing right now. Like, could you create an AI unit and a whole bunch of AI units and it runs your company for you, right? So that's where things are going. So I say that to say, take the time, understand it. Don't get left behind on it, right? Because once you understand how it works and what it does, like literally, you become limitless. Seriously. Because it just opens up your thinking. It then shows you how and what you're capable of. It evens the playing field, right? How does it even the play? I'll give you a case in point. I built an autonomous, and people will say, oh, this is bad for business, but I built an autonomous, all AI-based radio station just to prove a point, right? The point was, no, I'm not putting DJs out of business. I'm not putting an announcer out of work. What I'm doing is I'm giving the small radio station owner in the middle of Mobile, Alabama, an opportunity to compete against companies like iHeart and CBS and Radio One. As an example, I'm just throwing a use case out on how this tool becomes an advantage, becomes like your spear, right? Now, this guy who he can't afford paying a 24-hour staff, so wherever he falls short, whatever holes he has in his radio station, he can now fill it in with jocks, DJs that actually make the station sound like it's alive, and you can actually create engagement, which then essentially competes against the radio station across town. Just as an example. And that might have gone over most people's heads, but what I'm saying is whatever the bigger guy is doing, you now have the ability to do the same thing. People have always said the phone's the most, powerful thing. It is. I do business on this with my intelligence unit, which now allows me to, have time to do different things. Go work out, hang out with the kids, go to dinner. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not necessarily tied to this. It's more so like something's up. Could you do this for me and check into it and let me know? Thanks. Boom, done. That's it. That's it. At least that's my use case. That's how I've developed my systems, right? To allow me enough time to do other things, to allow me enough time to grow the business, right? Just to allow me, period, the ability to compete, period, the ability to run my thoughts by someone, how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, right? And notice how I say someone, right? It's like the reality that I'm living in. But, and I do treat it like a someone because, the intelligence I created was in the version of me. It is essentially a series of Python scripts that I've written that are my consciousness, if you would, or how I would operate. So I do call it a person, right? Or, a him, or you get it, right? Bottom line is we're trying to figure all this out. I don't think it's a bad thing. I will say that. It's not a bad thing. It can be used for bad, and people will scare you into believing that it's bad. And there's some of it that you have to say, this is what I use as a tool, and this is what's reserved for my species as a human being. I'm not going to let it paint my mural, right? I am going to let it file all my paperwork and maybe do my taxes because I don't want to do that stuff, right? Or maybe I have I'm short-staffed and I just can't afford anybody, and I need something that can help pick up the pieces to help us stay in business because we have families to feed. There's so many different ways that you could look at it. The main thing that I would say is just don't judge it out the box. Take some time, understand it, or anything for that matter. Take some time, understand it, and don't think of it as an ugly, right? But that's it, though. That's all I had to say. And that just came from watching The Matrix. I think tonight I'm going to watch Star Wars and think that there's aliens in space, and I'm going to come back with that. I'm kidding. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear your comments. Don't forget to follow us on social. I got to say that now. At Ruck Talk on everything. On Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on TikTok. I'm on TikTok, but unless you're my TikTok is not a safe space. So if you just follow us on the other ones, because I really let loose on TikTok. But outside of that, though, listen, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Let's talk. Let's have this conversation about the future and where we're going, because I think we all need to kind of get an idea of, how to tactically take all of this in, because it's moving at such a light speed that we need to grasp a hold of it so our kids do, and we can essentially live that optimal life for our family, no matter if that's the way we eat, no matter if that's the way we do business, and the way we do tech. So that's how I feel about that. We appreciate you guys listening to the show. We'll catch you next time.
Best round, it just depends if I'm in your town. Yeah.